Just wave your hand if you can hear what I'm saying. Very good. Okay. Very good. So thanks for coming out. I'm pleased to be here on stage today and present some of the learnings from Nokia. Anybody have a Nokia phone? Raise your hand. I get that a lot. Anybody who have a mother or father who have a Nokia phone? Much more. That's the issue. So I'm not going to talk about the Nokia phones because we don't do phones anymore. But what I am going to talk about is how, when you let HR change your mind, the change will stick. And this is a story from one of the partner companies of Nokia, how we went through a turnaround and how HR played a very important role in this. And I think there's some good lessons. It's very practical, let me warn you. But hopefully some good nuggets you can take away and maybe use in your own business. I hope you'll get away from my presentation knowing two things. One, how we took on the HR mission to do the turnaround, and then how we did a cultural transformation 3 years ago. Now here's the point, when you do change management, never declare victory too soon, is reading all the books. So if you don't do change management and turnaround and culture, you very easily slip down again this road. So anybody who will sell you as a consultant, change management without cultural transformation, they're just after your money. And if you only do one thing, I hope you like it because it's going to go like this. So this is kind of anchoring change from an HR perspective. Maybe that's the first point. If you do a lot of consultancy for this, you can save a lot of money. Only works for the guys who want to take you into the cultural transformation as well. Right. So I work for Nokia. I'm the HR director for the sales in Europe. And Nokia is quite an interesting company. It's a Finnish company. It's very old, actually more than 152 years old. Nokia started off by making paper. Then we make rubber boots. Then we make cables. We made satellite dishes. We made TV sets. We did equipment for mobile operators. We made the mobile phones. We don't do that anymore. You can see here on the slide, we actually sold that off. We bought some other companies. We bought Witting for the healthcare. So although Nokia is 150 years old now, we always been transforming. It's kind of in our DNA. So the one thing I want to tell you, if you're going to change and drive change, you need not to look at your own ego and your own plans. You need to look into the culture and the company's readiness to do change. You can only run as fast so the organization fit with you. And I'm lucky to work for a company that has been through this ever since we were founded. So it makes it a little bit easier. But still we've been been through, that's what I want to say, quite some interesting journeys. So we don't do mobile phones, so what excites us in Nokia? We're excited about technology and some of the mega trends in the world. I think, I'll build up here. I'm not going to talk a lot about all these mega trends, but this is what's going on. Whenever you want to use more technology for the better of mankind, to connect all the devices in the world, to digitalize the ecosystem, you need connectivity, you need technology to make the world a better one. And that's what excites us. That's why mobile phone didn't excite us anymore. It's not going to give us that, it's just going to give us phones. So we're excited about that. And the mission of Nokia is to create the technology that connects the world. That's what we do. We sell to many different customers, but ultimately that's a question we ask ourselves every day. How can we further develop that to connect the world in a better way? Because Nokia wants to make sure that human beings get the best out of technology. So we haven't lost the Nokia connecting people, the Nokia human touch on it. It's still there behind the scenes. So it all looks good, but it was not actually always like that. It's been a bit of a roller coaster. And in 2011, in the joint venture between Nokia and Siemens, we had 8 quarters left. When you are more than 75,000 people in a company, 8 quarters is quite short before you can do some things. We had 8 quarters before we run out of cash. Go bankrupt. We had 8 quarters before our competitors would eat all our market share. And we had 8 quarters before our customers would say, we don't believe in your future abilities to develop your technology. We're simply just going to swap out even before your competitors are doing this. So that was a really, really low point in Nokia's history. We were basically facing the wall. We're still here, so we did something. I'm not going to tell you about how did we come out of that very, very bad situation here. The first thing you need to know is that the telecom industry at that point in time was very, very cruel. Everybody wanted to offer everything to everybody. It was a telecom supermarket. Any customer who got €1 to spend, come to us with a telecom Walmart, spend the money with us. So there was a massive need for consolidation to enable all of that scale. And this is just what happened the 5 years before. There was a lot of individual players, but what happened up until 2011 was that, and now you know it, Nokia and Siemens, we went together. Nortel went out with a flat tire. They went bankrupt. Alcatel and Lucent went together. Ericsson's was in the front. We bought Motorola. And while we were doing all of that, the Huawei and the ZTE, they just kept on cycling, and now they're actually at the very forefront. So think about that, what that means when you are competing like hell, you're consolidating, you try to offer everything to the customers, and then still you don't win. So in 2011, in November, the 23rd, we made a bold strategic move. We launched a new strategy. And we went completely 180 degrees against the stream. We defined a focus strategy for Nokia. A focus strategy where we only do mobile broadband. We will not any way go around and innovate for everybody. We will simply focus our innovation on where it matters. And for those of you who are in innovation, you know that number one, don't make the money, number two, make the money. So it's really very tactical. And we wanted to be a differentiator for Nokia to be good in quality. I mean, we bought Motorola, they're quite good in that. And we want to leverage that because in the telecom industry, quality is not always so good because the driver many, many years has been speed, 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 and speed. Sadly, it meant that we had to take out 1 billion of our operating expenses. And even more sadly, from a human resource perspective, it meant that we had to let 17,000 people go. 17,000. When you reduce 17,000 people in a company, you take out the good ones also. You take out the motivated people also. You don't just take out the bad ones. So it was a huge, huge emotional journey for Nokia. And for HR, it was an opportunity. It was an opportunity for us to play a role in the turnaround. And let me tell a little bit about how we managed to play ourselves into the center stage of that turnaround, not just writing off these letters to people and reorganizing as we went along. We sat with the very executive teams and we said, you cannot just do that. You need also to define what are the mindset shifts that will drive you to where you want to go. And we engaged with the executive board and facilitated discussion to say, what does good look like? And what are some of the things you see today that you don't like? Because only by knowing these two, you can actually start to create a meaningful journey for people, and you can start to make meaningful choices. And we came up with this after months of discussions. They said, okay, we were misaligned. We want to be a little bit more disciplined. We have excuses, blames. Everybody else than me is to blame. And we said, wow, we want to be accountable. I'm not just responsible, I'm accountable. It may not be me who created the problem, but I'm accountable for solving that. And the last one, we want to be just somebody who want to grow at any cost, to have the owner's mindset and grow the profit. Discipline, accountability, and profit mindset, DAP. So once you have that locked down, simple as this is the slide, then you have an inflection point where you can start to embed that into the wider organization. And I think my learning is you should never really underestimate the power of making things so crystal clear and simple that you don't need 20 slides to explain it. You need just that, I can explain it to anybody. Now then obviously getting 75,000 people to understand what does it mean for me, that's a separate journey. And I think that's also something that we have our HR team to engage in. So let me talk a little bit about how do we then make sure we got that philosophy of discipline, accountability, and profit mindset into the wider organization. This is what normally happens, right? I do the right things, but maybe I don't change my mindset. So we started to understand, how can we approach this? What are some of the things that doesn't really work? And we realized that we went to a long journey. You cannot just send this slide to everybody and they will get it, because then they will do like these guys. You need to change people's mindset. And sadly, we realized doing these changes is not always successful. 6 out of 10 fail. So we realized you really need to take a deep look at this. Here you can see 6 out of 10. We also realized, if you look at the other side of the slide, that 72% of the reasons why change fail is because of lack of management going to the new direction, bad leadership role modeling, and also that people are not changing their mindset. So we said, oh, now we know exactly where we need to focus on. So this is what we did. We looked at, should we use the corporate press? Should we inform people? Should we cascade the actions? Or should we have leaders as visible role models? What would be the most powerful to put ourselves on that massive transformation journey? And we realized it's not one of them, it's three of them. So you need to have a very rich way of implementing your action plans across a company. When everybody's in distress, you need to have a very detailed approach so you touch everybody, because not everybody's going through this change curve at the same speed. So we realized, wow, we really need to do this in a good way. And this is the model we used. Like any action we defined, we said, is it? I just don't know. I'm not convinced. Is that an action? It's not just what you need to do. Do I need to have an action that helps people be convinced or understand it? Or is it, I don't have the right skills? I used to be good in fixed network, we sold it off. I need some other skills. I have HR consultants who are good at administration, now I need to drive change. Is it just a skill set? Do you just simply need to hire some people? Do you need to train people? That's another angle. And the third one was role modeling. If the leaders are not walking the talk, this goes nowhere. So you also need to define action that helps leaders walk the talk. And the fourth dimension was, do we need to reinforce the change with a formal mechanism? Because if I say, oh, discipline, accountability, profit mindset, Peter, you are now accountable, and I go and recruit a person and I need to have 7 layers of approval to get this person on board, I go like, I don't think this works really. So you need also to have your formal processes, your formal things to back up your change journey. So it's leaders, it's systems, it's your conviction, the story, and it's your skills. And my learning is, any action, you need to attack at least 2 of these jointly with any action. It's not just what you need to do differently, then you don't change the mindset. That's the first learning. And then you need to go deep. So we took discipline, accountability, and profit mindset, the framework for the actions. We went to all the business groups, we went to all the teams to think about, what does this shift mean in your organization? What does it mean in your team? And for me, Peter, what does it mean for me? What do I need to do differently? And we went deep and wide, and HR was facilitating all these discussions. And more than being just very, very effective, because you basically cover everybody, it puts HR in a different light. HR facilitating the change. We're part of that. You need to speak about this as an HR consultant. So it's fantastic ability also to actually raise the level of what people expect from HR. It was extremely expensive. Many of these things you need to do face-to-face, otherwise it doesn't really work. It took a lot of time, but I don't think we could have done it if you don't do this. So if somebody says we do change and we stop by global conference calls or webcast, it doesn't work. You need really to go all the way down and touch people on the ground. So going wide and going deep, that was one of the learnings with the 4 different ships that helped us change this mindset. Because mindset change is a cultural change, which is how things done around here. So when you want everybody to go in the same direction, everybody needs to understand, what does discipline, accountability, and profit mindset mean for me? So I need to change as well. This is one learning we had out of this. And then reality hit us. We realized, well, change is not really easy for people. Everybody loves change, nobody loves to be changed themselves. So we start to think about, why is it so bad for people? What is it really? I mean, you lay off 17,000 people, you think, I'm on the road here, I'm just going to run. So we need to step back a little bit and start to think about, why is this not working well? Here's the change curve. We said, like, oh yeah, we know this change curve. Can we make it smooth? Can we make it short? Then everybody will walk through this as just a walk in the park. It just doesn't work. It's not really the issue to make it short and make it not so steep. The issue is, when you look into how people think and how we react to change, that it's kind of an emotional reaction as bad as a physical pain when you go through change. We realized that by doing some studies into neuroscience, and realized it's just as bad as somebody hit you in the face when you go through uncertainty. And applying a model we call the SCARF model, which is from the Neuro Leadership Institute, it helps us with a framework so any change conversation could be much more effective. So for instance, you're in a situation with a leader, you say like, if I change, but I don't hurt your status, at least I don't put you down, you're not put out because you're a bad person or your role is not there, it's a good change for you. Or we don't hurt your status, you may not like the change. You create a little bit of a positive scarf. If people feel like, oh, I'm worse than the other guys now, it creates a negative threat response. And same with some of the other ones like autonomy. Maybe you can just give one dimension free to people. Maybe you cannot negotiate the time or the headcount, but maybe how they reduce the headcount or how they change the business, you have some freedom. And giving people the autonomy creates some positive scarf, as you say, and it helps people to be, hey, I'm part of this, I can influence it. I can relate to people. It's not an email inbox that comes and emails me these things. It's a real person talking to me. So there are many, many things to applying this model where you can create positive scarf, which helps people through a change journey. Because whenever you do not do that, the negative effect is roughly 3 times higher than the positive, and they stay much longer. So from a business perspective, it makes a lot of sense to invest your time and energy on having conversations where you create this scarf. And sometimes we went to some very simple approaches, like just having these letters, these definitions, and said, okay, now we're gonna shut down this business line. How are we gonna go through all these 5 domains to make sure the messages goes out well and we treat people in a decent way? Because we realized the people at Nokia, we pay them to think, and you need to also then help them to think differently about the change, not just push them through this. It doesn't really work like that. It was actually so successful, we realized everybody needs to understand that it's quite natural that change is not easy for you. So we developed an online program. We said, everybody in Nokia will have the opportunity to understand why is it natural that this is very hard for you. We didn't have a lot of money, so this was all done online, and this is how we did it. Month 1, there was a video, half-an-hour video online you can watch. Then there was a quiz in the end. Then every line manager got a communication kit, so he or she could have conversation with his or her team, and then they could embed their thinking into, so what does it mean for me, and where am I in this change journey, and the brain and the change, what does it mean for me, and what are some of the things I'm struggling with? And then we had an online forum to the relatedness part, where you could then discuss with some experts or with your colleagues around the world. Next month, we took people through how do you maximize your focus when you're under threat. The next month, how do you regulate your emotions? Because it's a bit of a roller coaster. And the third one, or the fourth one, how do you then become good in thinking and focusing together with other teams, because we are at different levels of the change journey. All done online in a very systematic way. It was more than 40% of people in Nokia who actually went through all the 4 modules. I don't know about online trainings where you guys are working, but for us that's pretty high. We never have 40%. That's pretty good, we're very happy with that. We wrote an article and we got in the Novo Leadership Institute and so on and so forth. But what really was powerful about that was you made something available for people and you actually help people. You say, we realize it's hard and here's what we will do to help you on this. And I think we should not underestimate in the times of change the need of people to really feel that you care for them. It cannot be so that it's a nice company, but now we hit some wins, all of a sudden we are some very not so nice company to work for. And these kind of things give people the message, well, this company actually is not doing nice things to me, but they do care about me. And the people who stay behind, they will remember that. So it also helps you to get fast out of the change journey again. This is just actually how it looks like. It's just screenshots. 1, 2, 3, 4, you went into the online platform, you did this. We send out these out-of-the-box comments. Your brain want to have a word with you to have a little bit of an interesting way to attract people to the program. I don't recommend you repeat that. We thought that was a very good idea. You do this in Eastern Europe, you do that in Latin America. It didn't work so well. They don't appreciate this kind of thing. So maybe we have some learnings out of that. Some experts, you have some Q&A, and then the forum, supporting material. So all online, everybody can access it. And we still got people, believe me or not, who is accessing this material this day today. So it's still alive and people can still access this kind of things. In this online forum, we have a lot of those in Nokia. We have in general 2.5 answers to any question. So I think for our standards, that's pretty active. We're not so good in this. You have a question, you have an answer, or just not anything. So 2.5, it's pretty good. So it was really, really alive well. And it was just a fantastic way to helping people through the change. So you do the hard part, you do the soft part. combination of these two things really positioned HR in a very different light. And when I look back at the change, the 1 billion we took out, I think this was a very good investment. It was not so expensive because we could do it online, just out of necessity. Here we go. So this is how we did it. Then, 3 years later, we have done all of that, but we also realized we had seriously reorganized in Nokia. Nokia and Siemens came together, came into Nokia, we bought the shares of Siemens. We had bought Motorola Network, we had a little mapping company called the HERE, we now sold again. We had the Nokia Technologies was being formed, and we have sold off the mobile phone. So the whole organization as part of the transformation was actually turned upside down. And although we were now one company, we were 7 different cultures. You had people from Nokia Siemens networks, you got from Motorola, you got from technologies, you got new executives we hired. We came in completely from the market, hired for a specific purpose. And you had people who had survived the change. They were just coping along, not being caught out. And you got the survivors who just really didn't change. So we had 7 different cultures. So rather than slipping down the slippery slope again of change and going back, we took ourselves upon to put the organization through a cultural journey to anchor the new culture. Because this is when change really starts to stick. And that was another opportunity for HR. Again, based on our previous experience, we thought like, let's start with the simple things, let's start with the fundamentals. What is culture really? Well, culture links into how we do things around here. So let's first align on the values. And we had senior executive engagement to redefine the Nokia values. It took months. I mean, you have your values, we have ours. It's not so important, but it's important that make them very crystal clear, very much strong buy-in from the leaders. Because if you don't agree on the values, you're not going to agree on the culture. Then it's going to be a little bit, well, it's not for me, it's not like that. HR hangs them on the wall, they're sitting there. They need to sit in your heart. So it needs to come from senior engagement. Otherwise it doesn't really work. That's our learning. So once we had these values, we also said, well, where do we need to focus? What is the culture? What is the dimension we need to focus on? We cannot just change anything. And we took some good advice from an organizational health index survey. It's something we did together with McKinsey. Really powerful. It gives you a good scan by interviewing all the people wide and high in the organization. It gives you a good cross-section of the organization's ability to be aligned and execute and leadership. And more importantly, it gives you an opportunity to focus on a few things and get them right. So this is what we did to focus on. And then we had the work laid out for us. Now here's what we did next, which was a little bit of a design. We said, rather than having all these streams just set out in parallel as we normally do, we put the change streams under the banner of each of the values. And we had a minimum 2 board members sponsoring every stream. So 2 board members had a particular interest in having a specific value for Nokia in mind. And as we went down into the operational organization, project managers, facilitators, and all this kind of stuff you do in change journeys, we mixed people from different parts of the organization. So when you go down one of these silos like respect or achievement or which one you take, you never ever had the same board member for the same business, the same people executing from the same business. They were all from across the company. And this is a very, very powerful way of getting a new culture implemented. Because you cross-polarize across the company. You start to talk about it. Different people need to come together. And it doesn't cost you anything. It's just a smart way of designing your change journey so you bring people together. And it really, really worked well for us. So that we did, and it went quite well. Obviously, there's a couple of things you then need to do in HR to really hardwire it. It's not just all of this. You need also really to make it stick. And let me take you through a couple of the things which we did in the HR team to really make the change stick. We did many other things, but I just want to pick a couple of them so we also maybe have some time for some discussion afterwards. Remember this one? It also works for the other one. So I really believe in this. Minimum 2 different things, not just an action and a deadline, but have 2 dimensions, then it really works powerfully. And this is what we did. Culture is about what we do around here, so we have this Make It Happen campaign, which really was a huge communication campaign, so we start to make the new culture the talk of the town. One thing we did was we had the executives going through the top 250 of the company, walk the talk sessions. It's easy to say to a leader, you need to be the role model. But if you help them a little bit, what is the story? What are my slides? What are some of the things? And these guys align, then it's much easier to walk the talk. And that helped them with the other intervention when they're out in town halls. People start to hear the same way of talking from different leaders. They know R&D is maybe not the best friend of sales. They know that procurement and HR is maybe not the best friends of innovation. But they hear these leaders talk the same talk, and people go and say like, oh, that's the point. So that was very powerful. We then also drove it down into cultural cafes, so people across different functions could sit around the same tables in a country, in a site, Munich or Vienna or Graz, and talk about what does it mean for us? What is the culture in a dimension of this location, not my business group? And this is very important because Nokia is an incredible matrix organization, and putting the location dimension, you give another anchor point into anchoring the culture. So there's business groups, there's leaders, there's location. You need to touch all the dimensions of the organization. And this was just one very, very practical way we did it. It was very expensive, but at this point in time, I don't feel you can save on this. If you just do it with the PowerPoint, at a certain point, it doesn't work. You need to touch people and really touch the ground and be out there. So there's certain parts in the change journey and the cultural transformation journey where you really have to be out there and everybody needs to be in front of you and talking. And as we are very much a virtual organization, when we do these kind of things, everybody goes like, whoa, this is important. These guys are coming, we're organizing, we're in hotels, so you also get a little bit the wow effect out of this. Then we looked at leadership. And as part of our change journey, we redefined how leadership looks like in Nokia. I mean, this is just the 20 Korn Ferry competences. You maybe have yours for leadership. But here's what's important part. We linked the values into standards for leaderships, into leadership competences, which covers everybody from executive to director level managers down to the very individual contributor. So anybody in Nokia who have an issue with one of the values can go and see which competences do I need to work on. And anybody who says like, I don't really know, they can do a 360 assessment where they're going to get a scan of all these competences. And this is a very powerful tool to hardwire change and help people understand what do I need to do in my personal change journey. It's simply just to linking your different HR processes together. That's a very practical thing. Another thing we did was every month we wanted to sample how the organization is developing, because when you transform like that, you need to have ultra fast feedback. So we took a subset of our employment engagement questions, we added some of the change questions, and we sampled 10% of the employees every month. Report results, analysis, deltas, and then we can say, and what are the actions we're taking at this management level. And you can see, although I don't have the numbers here, you can see how it really helps us to steer the conversation. So that's another thing where we can really add value in HR, give people data points. When you give business leaders data points and things, they can react. If you just say, I don't feel we're going so well here, they may not respond to that. So having a very data-driven, systematic approach and sample very fast, you can really help the organization to do the change journey and stay on the right course. So that was another one where we get a bit of a quick win there from HR, because before that we were not super data-driven. That was another one we got in the box. So what's the next frontier? Last year we bought Alcatel-Lucent, now we're integrating that, so I don't know what will happen after that. But here's what I do know. If you dare to be a little bit bold and do things differently, things can work out. You need to go upstream, whether you do a business strategy or you do something new as an HR. And as an HR organization, never be too shy to retool your toolbox. We didn't know about no leadership when we started. We didn't know we could play a role in that. We didn't feel we were the right guys to facilitate executive discussions, but we went a little bit out of our box to do that. And if you start with the customer in mind, if you start with what are the change journey, what are the things you want to achieve, and work yourself back against that, not saying, no, I don't want to change my processes. We start from the customer's mindset, then it filters back. Then you can actually change the organization, and HR can play a very important role in this, point one. And point two, then you take the mindset shift to the organization, and then the change stick in the end, via turnaround and then also a cultural journey. So this is a story. I want to say thank you very much for listening. We got 10 minutes or so if there's anybody got any questions or any comments. But this is a story I want to tell you. Thanks. And I think I need this one now. If there's anybody got any question, just raise your hand. Yeah, questions, yeah.
Hi. You mentioned that the... Is it working?
Yeah.
You mentioned that the HR measures didn't work so well in Latin America and Eastern Europe. Why do you think that is?
Great question. It was related to how we were running that campaign for the neuro leadership, how you focus based on how your understanding of the brain. And when you put out a message in these little bit mature cultures, the brain want to have a word with you. Some people dismiss it as being not seriously.
Okay.
So in hindsight, you need to be a little bit more cultural sensitive. Why did it happen? We were simply in our own little box. We thought that was pretty cool. We didn't listen.
So did you use another approach?
Yeah, we have a second go at it.
Oh, okay.
It went better, but we never recovered. People remember that, so it was a bummer.
Okay, thank you.
Great question. Oh, there's one there, or?
Hi, thanks
Hi.
for the talk. I just wanted to ask, were there some people who didn't want to adapt to the change and tried to demolish your efforts, and how did you deal with that?
Yes. There were a number of people who didn't see this important. We realized, one, they didn't see the urgency, they didn't see the need. We also think they were part of the company for the wrong reasons. So we had very open and frank discussions with these people about maybe it was time for them to move on.
Okay.
And as part of our investment in restructuring, we are very much present in Europe where it's very hard to lay off people. We decided to give people some fairly handsome packages just to be out. And it really helped. Sometimes you need to pay to get that out because they destroy your organization much more than you want.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Good. Any other comments or questions? Oh, there's one there.
Hello, you told us about your online tool to support your employees to deal with the change.
Yeah.
Could you also evaluate the impact of that? So what was the impact?
Yes. What we did was, every employee survey, engagement survey we did, we could filter on, does this person go and did 1, 2, 3, and 4 modules, and what was his or her employment engagement level? And we tried to compare people who did and people who did not do the survey, so we could do this. It was not conclusive. We think there were maybe 5 points above, but we could not really conclude it statistically. But we could see there were some hints of the data that it had a positive impact. Honestly, I think there were so many other things that impacted that, so you cannot make a straight correlation. But we did try. It just didn't have concrete data. Good point, yeah. Oh, there's one there.
Hi, I'm Sandra from Wired Consulting.
Hi.
I'm just interested to hear, as you mentioned very well how you did the turnaround and that it's an ongoing process but more referred to the past. But in what way are you putting this for the people into the future? So in what way is it an ongoing process for your company?
Very, very great point. We bought Alcatel-Lucent last year, and we started immediately with the values, the cultural transformation early on, and made it very clear what does good look like. So rather than doing certain things and then it slipped and then we need to pick it back, we early on make it very clear what does good look like in this company. And we help people to be part of that journey. So we try to be a little bit upfront on this as a very pragmatic way of doing it. Yeah. Great question. Other questions, other comments? Oh, there's one there.
Hi. You mentioned that 40%, you got 30% answers. Why did you keep it voluntary?
That's a great point. We wanted to give people the message that this is something we do to help you. And if you start by having, positive scarf, relatedness, it needs to be good for you, and you say, but you have to do it, you go quite the opposite way. And we didn't want people to do it for us saying they need to do that. They need to do it because they saw value in this. And I think it's the only way you can do it. You need to motivate people. It's much stronger than pushing them for this. Great point, yeah? I think that we've got time for a couple of more questions or comments if that's from anybody. Ah, there's one there.
Hi, my name is Christian, and I
Hi.
work for a small company, and we implement e-learnings.
Yeah.
And how did you get the motivation that the people go online and watch all these models? And how did they tell them that they have to do that, or how did you implement it? Did you send out a mail to go online?
Great question. Very practically, this mail with the brain wants a word with you, we did that whenever we launched a new module. We changed the tone very much. So we did that as a bit of a prompt. But then we actually want to use the online forum to make it a little bit the talk of the town. So I had people to talk about it. Hey, this is cool and you should go and do that. So we tried to create a little bit the attraction from the organization from this. Yeah. Point, yeah? Oh, there's a question there as well. Oh.
How long did it take you to implement this? And did you do this with a responsible person, or did you do it despite your usual daily business?
The whole journey, or part of it, or the program, or
The program, the online program.
We used key parts of the changes done by the HR organization. We had very few HR consultants to help us. They were more on the legal side, so this is done by the HR organization. We had the external partners coming in for these train the brain sessions and these kind of focus mind sessions, but we did it mainly by ourselves. We had more consultancy support on the more hardcore part of it. When you restructure the business and what is the implication of the tax and how do you cut the head counts and these kind of things. And I think that's maybe also the beauty of it, that when you do it yourself, it becomes your program. So we were very keen on having the right balance between that. Would I do the same again? I would probably use a little bit more consultancy, because when you do this and your day job and you change, some people actually have a very hard time, and I think we would not repeat it in the same scale. It's very tough. Some people burn out from this. We would change it a little bit next time. I guess that's also your point, huh? Yeah. Yeah. Right. Other questions or points? Okay. I guess we're done, and thanks very much for coming, and look forward to see you around here.